NLP is, frankly, problematic. Its popularity in business and in management goes through phases, and its evidence base is patchy at best, arguably weak. But on the other hand, it has a lot of tools that are useful, and there is certainly a lot of interest. So, what is NLP? NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming, and legend has it that one of the founders of NLP, Richard Bandler, made up the name on the spot when asked by a police officer what he did. But with a name that is as much of a mouthful as Neuro-Linguistic Programming, we should at least be able to gain some understanding of what it is from the words that make up its name. Neuro refers to our minds, and indeed the whole neurological system that we have, which processes information. Linguistic refers to the way that we primarily process that information through the medium of language. And programming refers to the way that we can create, break, and recreate the mental procedures for the things that we do, either consciously or unconsciously. So we could define NLP as creating patterns of behaviour using the language of our nervous system. Different leading NLP practitioners and developers have each crafted their own definitions of NLP, and they can vary quite wildly. Let's start with the two founders of NLP, John Grinder and Richard Bandler. Grinder's description of NLP as the study of human excellence is for me highly ambitious and aspirational. Bandler, on the other hand, emphasises rather more the practical side of how he sees NLP. He describes it as an attitude and a methodology that leaves a trail of techniques. Perhaps the best known exponent of NLP is Tony Robbins. He describes NLP as the science of programming your brain to achieve the objectives you want in life. That's a pretty grand vision of what NLP might be able to achieve. In summary, there seems to be one question that, without a doubt, most of NLP's techniques, models, theories, and ideas seek to answer. How can we reprogram people's patterns to create excellent behaviour? As with much of NLP, its core principles are articulated in a number of different ways. However, there are four that seem to come up most often. First, know what outcomes you want. This is all about understanding what you want to achieve so that you can set out to get it. Second is use your senses with precision. NLP places a great stress on this kind of sensory acuity. The idea being that if you can use your senses well, you are best placed to read other people's moods and concerns and to understand their behaviours. Third, build rapport with yourself and with others. If you want to create change in other people, then you have to have rapport with them. And if you want to create change in yourself, you need to properly understand who you are and what you value. And fourth, cultivate behavioural flexibility. NLP places great stress on our ability to respond to the situation and to use what resources we have at the moment. And I think this is one of the strongest of the four principles, simply because we know that if you are able to adapt your behaviour, adapt your choices to the circumstance, you're best able to harness the opportunities in front of you. The first published work on NLP was called The Structure of Magic, which appeared in 2 volumes in 1975 and 1976. They were written by Richard Bandler and John Grinder. The Structure of Magic offered an analysis of the language patterns of therapists like Virginia Satir and Fritz Perls. John Grinder's academic background was in linguistics. Richard Bandler's was in computing, which led them to incorporate ideas from the field of cybernetics into later work. Further work by Bandler and Grinder, and later by others too, brought in all sorts of other sources and ideas. They drew on hypnotic language patterns, particularly from Milton Erickson, on behavioural psychology and on ecology. Later collaborators and developers of ideas included people like Robert Dilts, Wyatt Woodsmall and Tad James. By the early 1990s, the body of knowledge was well developed and at the peak of its popularity. Through the 80s, there had been a large number of books published about NLP, but I would say that since the start of this century, since around 2000, there had been fewer books appearing, marking a downturn in the popularity of NLP, although I would say there is still a large appetite for learning about it in the world of management and business and professional services. Some of the core techniques in NLP, many of which we'll look at in this series of videos, include things like analysing language patterns, using hypnotic language to effect change, rapport building, and seeking to change mental and emotional states. The models that NLP uses to do these things have exotic names like the Milton model or the meta model, representation systems, internal representations and submodalities, reframing, logical levels, eye-accessing cues, anchoring, swish, visual squash, and timeline therapy. Indeed, many of the core techniques of NLP have a therapeutic origin and a therapeutic purpose. As a result, we won't be covering those because this channel is all about management knowledge, and as a manager, you're not a therapist. I want to end by addressing the reputation and, frankly, the ethics around NLP. The term Neuro-Linguistic Programming can sound a little creepy to some people, and perhaps rightly so. In the 1980s and the 1990s, it became fashionable to train salespeople in NLP so that they could perform seemingly magical feats of influence and persuasion using the techniques that NLP gives us. Without a doubt, if some of the techniques of NLP really work, we have an obligation to use them ethically. I can also say with equal certainty that there will always be some people who have absolutely no interest in ethics. Please don't be one of those. Another ethical factor is that, as I mentioned, a lot of the techniques of NLP were spawned from therapeutic environments. A lot of them were modelled on high-tier therapists like Milton Erickson and Virginia Satir and Fritz Perls. Yet the whole range of NLP techniques, including the therapeutic methods, are taught to a wide range of people. People who may have no basic therapeutic or psychological training. Ouch. And finally, there is that all-important question about validity. How valid are the ideas in NLP? The first thing to say, of course, is that NLP is a great big bucket of tools and ideas and principles, and we can't treat them all the same. And secondly, we must acknowledge that very few psychological findings are backed by the gold standard of research. That is, firstly, large and diverse data sets, and secondly, numerous repetitions of the experiments. NLP is no different, although it is possibly at the far end of the spectrum of low levels of research. Often, elements of NLP arise from little more than observation and model building by enthusiasts. Without a doubt, though, some elements of this huge body of ideas are sound and can be useful in the right circumstances. Equally, though, there's a lot of NLP with little or no experimental backing, which is likely to have little or no efficacy in the hands of even experienced practitioners, much less people with little experience at all. The videos I've produced for this course focus mainly on the best known parts of NLP and the parts that are most useful to you as a manager. I'm going to avoid the therapeutic techniques and the far extremes of the NLP field and focus on what I think will answer the questions that you have as a manager, as a professional, or as a leader. Please do give this video a like if you've learned from it or enjoyed it. I'll be creating loads more great management courses content for you, so please do subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss any of it. I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and in the meantime, keep learning.